Yeah.
He'd say it's a change for the better.
I think maybe they'll be okay.
This is CNN.
We'll be back in about 30 minutes with more Early Prime. Inside Politics is next.
Before that, a check with Beverly Shook in New York on the day's financial news.
Lou, Sharyl, the blue chips managed to bang out another win today on Wall Street. The Dow Industrials building on yesterday's 20-point rally, but the other markets didn't fare quite as well. The Dow, however, ended the day up 6.5 points at 3251.5. In heavy trading volume, 200 million shares traded hands today. The broader and secondary markets ended the day mixed. OPEC ministers returning to the bargaining table in an effort to prop up world oil prices. The cartel will meet tomorrow to discuss production quotas for spring. Members must decide to cut back or risk a price collapse as seasonal demand falls. Oil traders were nervous today ahead of that meeting. The U.S. benchmark crude fell 50 cents in New York trading, ending at $19.28 a barrel. Short-term interest rates fell to 17-year lows today at the government's $15 billion auction. 3-year notes plunging to 5.54%. That is the lowest level since the government started auctioning the securities in 1974. It was the first leg of the Treasury's 3-day, $36 billion refunding. And that's the latest in business news. I'm Beverly Shook, reporting live from the New York Stock Exchange. Stay tuned now for Inside Politics, next on CNN.
If anybody told me 8 weeks ago that we'd even be second in New Hampshire now, I wouldn't have believed it. I think
Bill Clinton plays down his prospects in New Hampshire's presidential primary as our tracking poll shows Paul Tsongas now leading the Democratic pack.
And to Newmarket we go to see if New Hampshire voters are buying the candidates' platforms and promises. The checkout counter is here on Inside Politics 92.
This is Inside Politics 92 with Catherine Crier at the CNN Center in Atlanta and Bernard Shaw in Washington.
Exactly 1 week before New Hampshire's pivotal primary, our tracking poll provides a snapshot of a Democratic underdog turned top dog, a former frontrunner still stumbling, and voters shifting their support day by day. Paul Tsongas seized the #1 spot in yesterday's CNN USA Today Gallup poll. He was favored by 33% of the registered Democrats planning to vote in New Hampshire's primary. Bill Clinton's support slipped to 26%. Bob Kerrey comes in third with 13%. 11% favor Tom Harkin, 8% back Jerry Brown. Other and don't know nabbed 9%. Our tracking poll trend line follows Clinton and Tsongas' reversal of fortunes. Back on Thursday, Clinton had a statistically significant lead over Tsongas. The survey has a margin of error of 5 points.
New Hampshire looms larger than life with its first-in-the-nation primary only a week away. Bill Clinton, the self-styled target of what he terms the Republican attack machine, courted the too-young-to-vote crowd at a high school in Keene today. He's vowing to fight like hell to regain his momentum in the presidential race. Included on his closing stretch agenda, 2 30-minute call-in shows and a tough talk ad dubbed Take It Back.
Our country's in real trouble, but our people haven't failed, our leaders have. Now some want to bring back the same negative politics that brought us the bankrupt policies of the 80s. Look what's really at stake in this election. Your home, your health, your job, your future. On Tuesday, New Hampshire can make history. Send a message to Washington and Wall Street and to the tabloids. Control your own destiny. This is your election, your economy, your country. Take it back.
Clinton's also playing the lowering expectations game.
I feel great going into the last week of this campaign. If anybody told me 8 weeks ago that we'd even be second in New Hampshire now, I wouldn't have believed it. I think what's happened is in the last several days, these people have had a lot of stuff dumped on them about me, and they're just going to take another look, and I'm going to give them another look.
The new leader of the Democratic pack in New Hampshire, Paul Tsongas, plodded at his own quiet pace today, appearing at a YWCA in Manchester. The man from Massachusetts, whose ads brag he's no movie star, made a predictable effort to shrug off the frontrunner's mantle.
I'm not the frontrunner. Bill Clinton has raised 3 times as much money as I have He's got endorsements from governors, senators, congressmen. But I kind of like what I have here. And,
Meantime, Iowa's favorite son, Tom Harkin, is back in the Granite State. He's basking in the glow of his uncontested win in last night's Iowa caucuses. Whether netting nearly 80% support on his home turf will mean a big boost or just a little blip for the old line liberal remains a mighty question mark. Bob Kerrey had a fellow U.S. Senator sharing his campaign chores today. New York's Daniel Patrick Moynihan joined him on the stump in Manchester. And later, Kerry summed up his view of what he has to do from here on out.
What I've got to do is just come and say, look, I've fought my life and overcome things in the past. I felt a sense of betrayal at one point in my life as well. And this government restored my confidence. The government can, I think, be used as a powerful tool. And what I've got to do over the next week and between now and the nomination itself, I've got to come and convince people that I can make a difference.
Keeping busy doesn't seem to be making much of a difference to Jerry Brown, stuck in the cellar candidacy. On his itinerary today, a confab with the Concord Monitor editorial board, a talk to a nurses association, and an address on health care.
So, how are the voters of New Hampshire responding to those candidates? Joining us now to decipher the latest numbers is our public opinion specialist, William Schneider. Bill, always volatile New Hampshire, even more volatile this year. Why?
Bernie, the candidates are unknown. The voters are just beginning to find out about them. Only about a third of the Democratic voters in New Hampshire are strongly committed to any of the candidates. You know, there's been a lot of volatility on the Democratic side, much less on the Republican, because people have strong opinions. They know who George Bush is. The Democrats are worried because some candidate could sew up the nomination early, and then the Democrats could spend the next 6 months really, trying to figure out who it is they just nominated.
Well, what are these very discriminating New Hampshire voters looking for?
I think they're looking for two things, Bernie. They're looking for specific ideas about what the candidates are going to do to turn around the economy. They're all waving these books they've produced. You can call in and get a copy of them with a blueprint for what they're going to do. And the two candidates with the most specific ideas, Bill Clinton and Paul Tsongas, have risen to the top of the polls. But they're also looking for electability. Political correctness is out among Democrats. They want to win. When Clinton looked electable, he rose up in the polls. When his electability looked damaged, he went down. Now Paul Tsongas is moving up. But his electoral appeal outside New England has yet to be demonstrated. That means it's a wide open race.
Thank you very much, Bill. Catherine?
So we've just seen the political landscape of New Hampshire is unstable, but voters in the Granite State are looking for someone to lead them back to firmer economic ground. CNN's Candy Crowley now on New Hampshire and the politics of hard times.
For the 7,100 residents of Newmarket, this is the season of their political discontent. Inside Joyce's kitchen, John Burke muses over his coffee about the Democratic presidential slate.
The way you do it now is you put all the pictures on the wall, you take a dot, you close your eyes, you throw it, and whoever hit might be the lucky one.
Business is down at Joyce's. People who used to come for breakfast now come for coffee, or not at all. Joyce's husband, Owen Russell, works at a local high-tech firm. He worries every day he'll lose his job and doesn't think any candidate knows how that feels.
I really don't. You know, they say they do, but let's take some of these politicians and have them take a cut in pay, have them maybe lose a piece of property, come down with the little people. They, you know, they're making $100,000 a year. They're pretty comfortable.
Vitronics, one of Newmarket's major employers, laid off 35% of its workforce last fall, the first layoffs in the company's history. Vitronics President James Manfield says he'll vote for any candidate most likely to help businesses like his, so he can rehire those he had to fire. Business is good inside Newmarket's only barbershop. Charlie Kennedy says people who are out of jobs need to look nice for interviews. He does a lot of clipping these days and a lot of listening.
From what I hear anyhow, it's mostly primarily between Tsongas and Clinton, but I don't, everybody's up in the air. I think there's more people really don't know what they're going to do next Tuesday.
Charlie himself still wavers between two candidates. He is the personification of what pollsters call voter volatility. It means anything could happen next Tuesday. Off the beaten path, Newmarket has received no visits this year from presidential hopefuls. What they know of the candidates they have read in the papers or seen on TV. And one thing seems crystal clear. somewhere between here and the campaign trail, the messages of Campaign 92 have failed to resonate. Candy Crowley, CNN, Newmarket, New Hampshire.
We focus on sinking stats and political strategy. Coming up next on Inside Politics, more approval ratings blues for George Bush on the eve of the formal word of his run for re-election. And later, the Democrats ponder the important political question, where do we go from here? A roadmap from our media politics pundit, Frederick Allen.
Inside Politics is brought to you by Payne Weber. We believe our most important investment is an investment in relationships.
For years, I never even thought about it. Guess I just didn't want to face things. Yeah, I've been there. But now, my parents, they need real help. It's going to be tight. We'll just have to manage somehow. I got this guy at Payne Weber. Put me in a mutual fund for my parents. Same time he set up my kid's college fund. That long ago? How do you know about your parents back then? He asked.
Welcome to Hotel Views. Holiday Inn versus Ramada. Bob?
Susan, you dish towel. Look, I go to Holiday Inn. You want to know why? Because everybody goes there. It's a fact. Look it up.
Bob, you doorknob. Ramada gives you comfortable rooms and fine restaurants just like Holiday, but they also give you something extra. They're so sure you'll like them better, they'll put $5 right in your hand when you switch from Holiday. See, getting extra is good. If you didn't have a vacancy sign between your ears, you'd know that. Ramada's in, Holiday's out.
There's constipation and there's constipation. Oh, yeah. When it's this bad, take it to the max. New Maximum Relief Formula X-Lax pills with 50% more X-Lax medicine for maximum relief. Oh, yeah. Take it to the max.
I have written my life story so that recovery from addiction can be seen as the wonderful, life-giving experience that it is.
Whirlwind, recovery and help for others. To order, call 1-800-227-6269.
On CNN tonight, do they live by the law or above it? Athletes in court, in the crossfire. Then on Prime News, will the latest in men's underwear suit your taste? All tonight on CNN.
With Patrick Buchanan swinging a wrecking ball at George Bush's record and re-election bid, the president officially lights a fire under his campaign to begin damage control. CNN's Mary Tillotson reports on the man gearing up to save his job. Mary?
That formal announcement President Bush is running comes tomorrow morning here in Washington. Then he heads to New Hampshire, the first stop on what he hopes will be the road to re-election. George Bush in the Oval Office, right where he wants to spend another 4 years, despite Pat Buchanan's claims to New Hampshire voters that he's both more conservative and more caring than Mr. Bush.
Why don't we just let the voters settle that one on next Tuesday?
The latest CNN USA Today Gallup poll shows over 60% of New Hampshire Republicans do back Mr. Bush. But more than 1 in 4 support Buchanan, a strong showing for a speechwriter turned political commentator running against a sitting president.
In 3 years, New Hampshire has lost 50,000 jobs. I've seen the suffering in the faces of women who break down as they talk of how their husbands have been thrown out of work. I know the pain up here, and people in Washington have behaved as if they did not care. Well, I care.
That is exactly what the president told New Hampshire voters on his first campaign swing through the state a month ago.
We care. We care. We are...
The president will spend 3 more days in New Hampshire before the primary, telling voters not only does he care, but he now has a plan to cure the recession. The economic package laid out in his State of the Union speech. Overall voter approval of Mr. Bush across the country has steadily sunk with the steady rain of economic bad news. The latest CNN Gallup poll shows the president's approval rating has fallen from 70% in September to only 44% now, the lowest of his presidency. Bush strategists say there is no way the president will lose New Hampshire, but a long run of economic bad news could hurt Mr. Bush in November when he runs against a Democrat. That's why the president will not be specifically campaigning against Pat Buchanan in New Hampshire this week. He will be campaigning for his own economic plan, and he'll be blaming Congress for not having passed it sooner. Catherine?
Mary, there's been a lot of campaigning going on with the big gun absent from the battlefield. Why has President Bush taken so long to get out there?
Spokesmen here at the White House say the president wanted to maintain his presidential status as long as possible before getting down and wallowing in politics. I'm sure all of us know that politicians, along with reporters and used car salesmen, don't have the best odor among American voters. He wanted to stay above the fray. Of course, Democrats would say that Mr. Bush has already been playing politics, that, for example, when he sent them a health care plan with no specific financing package that he supported, only suggested some ways, that was playing politics, putting the onus on them.
Now he's jumping in for all to see. Mary Tillotson at the White House. Thanks. Bernie?
The blame game may not be working for Bush as well as he'd like. Half of those surveyed by CNN Gallup say the president is too quick to blame Congress about the economy. 44% disagree. And the poll points to skepticism about Bush's call for Congress to act on his proposals by March 20th. 20% think lawmakers will meet the deadline. 73% say no way. The medium and the message get the inside politics once over. Up next, a view of political journalism from the trail. Seasoned political reporters offer their recipes for winning campaign coverage.
That Michael? Yeah, starts college next year. Those lines. Well, Mike told me the price of his first choice. I know what you mean. I got this broker at Payne Weber. She put me in a zero coupon to cover college. Mm-hmm. But when did she do that? It's got to be 10, 11 years. 10 years ago? How did she know that's what you needed? She asked.
In Switzerland, Ricola has been soothing sore throats and relieving coughs naturally for over 60 years. Ricola is a blend of 10 organically grown alpine herbs and natural flavors, providing pleasant-tasting natural relief. Ricola, the natural choice for soothing sore throats and relieving coughs naturally.
It's all been thought out. All engineered, precisely where you want it. So where would you put a cockpit like this? In a rocket, of course. Introducing Achieva by Oldsmobile. Never has so much thought gone into this much fun. Oldsmobile, the power of intelligent engineering.
Everyone has a dream.
I don't always get an investing idea between 9 and 5. So when it clicks, I do my homework, and I call Charles Schwab. I can call Schwab at any hour for quotes, news, earnings. And when I buy or sell, I get commission savings too.
For free information about Schwab services, call toll-free 800-257-1257.
Finding the meat, sifting through the fluff, wading through the sleaze and the mud. That could be the job description of a political reporter, a job that isn't always easy. Two veterans of the campaign trail are with us from New Hampshire to size up the first wave of political coverage. Susan Feeney is the Washington correspondent for the Dallas Morning News, now covering national politics, and E.J. Dionne is a political correspondent for the Washington Post and author of the book Why Americans Hate Politics. E.J., how do you avoid being suckered by candidates?
Actually, I think New Hampshire is the easiest place to avoid all of that. The great thing about New Hampshire is that you actually see candidates up close. You get to talk to voters, and it's the one time voters have a real opportunity to approach the candidates, and I think they always ask better questions than we do.
Susan, how about you? How do you avoid being taken in?
Well, you try your best to stick to some of the issues that the voters most care about. In New Hampshire, that's fairly easy and obvious, which is the economy, trade, health care, everything that has to do with the economy.
I think also up here, everything is played so up front. I mean, that what everybody needs to do to win the campaign is clear. What candidates themselves talk about and why they're talking about it is clear, and everybody is around, so it's very easy to get access. I think this is, in a way, the journalist's dream. After New Hampshire, it becomes a lot more complicated.
Well, still, I'm wondering...
After this,
Go ahead, Susan.
Well, after this, then you end up very often locked on an airplane somewhere or shuttled from event to event in a bus. This is much more free and open.
Well, during this campaign, how do you avoid being taken in by pack journalism? For instance, were you taken in by the stories of sexual allegations and the draft story? How do you do your own work without being swept up by the pack?
Well, I think that's a question of what you mean by taken in, actually. I mean, you have to look at the things that drive the campaign and that tell us what the people are about. You can't ignore something if it's affecting how voters feel.
I think the problem with all these stories now is that you have so many different outlets of information. And I think a lot of voters turn on one show or another show, whether it's Current Affair or CNN, and it's all kind of information going their way. And the voters have to sift through all of this. The problem for political reporters is they have to make a judgment on the story itself, and they have to make a judgment on how voters are going to be affected by what they might hear on some other program that CNN might, for example, might normally have nothing to do with. I think that's really the problem that's been confronted up here in the last couple of weeks.
I'm wondering, can you be seduced by polls and be made to write horse race copy?
Well, I think we just saw an awful lot of horse race stuff, and I think we all sort of face people who ask us the question first, who's going to win? I think it's a question that's on the minds of voters. I think the good thing about this campaign, at least for the first 3 weeks, was that because the economic pain up in New Hampshire is so palpable, it was actually a very substantive campaign. I think in the last week it's going to be less so because we will focus so much on questions like, can Clinton hold on and come back? Will this Tsongas lead hold and all of that? I think that the early part of the campaigns, of this campaign, was a model of how we ought to do it later on.
Susan, I have to reduce you to 2 sentences.
I think leading to this point, we've done a fairly good job of using the polls in context and to describe what they mean and what's driving the campaign.
Thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
When Inside Politics resumes, we'll hear from Rick Allen on the strategies of the Democrats.
Certainly isn't the same old place.
No kidding.
I'm thinking of early retirement.
I'm not thinking about it. I'm doing it. 2 more years.
You can swing?
Yeah, my Payne Weber guy helped me out with it. Remember the stock money we got after the 84 buyout? He took it and restructured my entire portfolio.
But how did he know you wanted out back then?
He asked.
Backache? Try Momentum Muscular Backache Formula. Momentum has extra medicine to help relieve your backaches fast.
It's amazing what a difference a little paint and a couple of Momentum can make.
Momentum Muscular Backache Formula.
For those of you who have been reluctant to wear a hearing aid, Miracle Ear has more great news. If you have trouble hearing in noisy situations, the exciting Miracle Ear Clarifier may be your answer. The Clarifier features a special filter that automatically reduces background noise.
In a restaurant situation, it picks up the noises I want to hear, but the other noises are just moved off into the background.
If you or someone you know thinks they may be suffering from hearing loss, call Miracle Ear at this number and receive helpful information.
It really makes a lot of difference in your way of hearing and in your way of life.
Call this number. Miracle Ear will send you a booklet on better hearing, plus a coupon for a free hearing test. Call today. Learn about all the good news from Miracle Ear.
A lot of people don't even know you got it, especially the one I got, the design that I got.
Call this number. Find out if Miracle Ear can help you.
Tonight, actress Joan Collins takes the stage for her new role, Coming to New York. Plus, feminist Gloria Steinem on the women's movement, past and present. Tonight on Larry King Live, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Sometimes in politics, where you've been isn't quite as important as where you're going. And right now, direction is definitely a king-sized issue for the Democrats. Our media politics man, Rick Allen, sets his sights on the Democrats' strategy. Rick?
Catherine, in the movie The Candidate, Robert Redford has that famous question, what do we do now? He's won an election and he has no idea how to govern. In the real world, the Democratic candidates are asking that same question, only they're asking it a week before the first primary.
That's neat.
For Bill Clinton, the question is, how do you stop the bleeding? We're hearing a new, defiant tone.
I'm going to fight like hell.
Yet his target is elusive. Clinton's blaming unnamed Republicans for raising phony issues about his character and blaming the media for asking questions. But voters are asking too. Holding a call-in show about your character may be the ultimate in defensive politics. While the real threat to Clinton, Paul Tsongas, rises to the top of the polls, all Clinton can do is lower expectations, claiming he won't mind losing a state he once led.
I never expected that we would be able to win here.
Yet Tsongas faces tough challenges of his own. His new status as frontrunner has brought a crush of media coverage, and his tiny entourage, often consisting of just a press secretary, appears overwhelmed.
Who's the ringmeister here?
Tsongas was planning to take Wednesday off to regroup. Maybe a smart move with President Bush's announcement speech dominating coverage, but losing a whole campaign day in the last week is unorthodox and risky. So is relying on the gentle pace that brought you this far.
And there's a dynamic to this, and it builds on its own. It builds slowly, but eventually, word of mouth is the most powerful political mechanism.
Not necessarily.
I'm Bob Carey, and I'm
filling the airwaves with ads is a powerful mechanism too, yet Bob Carey's already done that, and so far it hasn't worked. His photo opportunities are the best of the lot, and they often make a point, like posing with a fellow Vietnam War hero, exploiting Bill Clinton's weakness. But still, no movement. And one reason may be a series of changes in the candidate's tone and image.
I'll tell Japan if we can.
Bashing Japan, then backing off, borrowing some sounds and styles from JFK, even hauling in Kennedy's old secretary, Evelyn Lincoln, for a backhanded compliment.
May not be a John F. Kennedy, but he's a close facsimile.
And then there's Tom Harkin. Winning Iowa was a command performance, but it cost him precious days away from New Hampshire. When he wasn't catnapping on Tuesday, Harkin was trying to airlift the atmospherics.
As I've traveled all over New Hampshire, the people there are much like the people in Iowa.
Actually, the whole point is that Iowa and New Hampshire are very different, and the voters of New Hampshire know it. In the last days of a campaign, it's hard to get headlines and airtime giving the same old stump speech. In a fluid race like this, what you usually see is a turn toward the negative. That means more attacks out on the stump, nastier last-minute ads on TV and radio, and it may mean a scorched earth policy for some of the candidates in the final debate coming up Sunday. A sharp attack 2 days before the vote can be unanswerable and very effective. That's not just a plug for CNN's debate, it's a smart strategy. Bernie?
Rick, the Tsongas campaign, incidentally, is basking in a little starlight. Actor Tom Selleck sent the campaign a letter from London. It says, quote, I saw you on CNN, like what I saw and heard, good luck. Along with the letter was a check, $4,000.
And tomorrow on Inside Politics 92, the incumbent will do the expected and make it official. We'll have details on George Bush's announcement of his bid for a second term in the Oval Office. And that's it for this edition of Inside Politics 92. I'm Catherine Crier in Atlanta.
I'm Bernard Shaw in Washington. Thanks for watching. Sharyl Attkisson joins us now for a look at what's ahead.
Bernie, coming up on Early Prime, the recession removes the glitz from the art market, but now you can pick up a pretty picture for a song. Also, the latest buzz about coffee, whether it's good or bad for your heart. Join Lou Waters and me for Early Prime next here on CNN.
Coming up, Early Prime continues, followed by Showbiz Today, after a word from your local cable systems, next on CNN.
What is the most important reason for making new ABZ seamless siding a part of your home? Is it to cover up the cracks that allow cold air to seep into your walls? These cracks make your furnace run more in the winter, your air conditioner run more every summer, and that is costing you money. Or is the most important job of ABC seamless siding to eliminate painting? This old wood siding has to be painted every few years, and wait till you see what good paint costs nowadays. Which is the most important reason to apply ABC seamless siding? To insulate or to end paint? It doesn't matter which is more important because you always get both. Before we apply ABC seamless siding, we first apply insulation. It's like wrapping your home in a blanket. Our insulation keeps the cold out in the winter. It keeps your air conditioning inside in the summer. Over this insulation goes your tough, new ABC seamless siding. It's made of 29-gauge American-made steel, galvanized, Bondurite treated, epoxy coated, and finally a thick 5mm vinyl finish is applied. That's 3 times thicker than other finishes. This finish carries a lifetime limited warranty, never to crack, chip, rust, or peel. And remember, with ABC seamless siding, you never have those ugly splices. Never. Insulate, never paint, you get both. Someday, all siding will be made like this. But why wait until someday when you can have ABC seamless siding now?
Are you tired of seeing your hard-earned money being thrown out the window? Does it seem like your energy bills are constantly rising? ABC seamless siding, insulation, and energy-efficient windows can help you lower your energy bills. With ABC seamless, you can make your home more beautiful on the outside and save money too. As an energy-conscious consumer, I fully endorse ABC seamless siding. Call today. They will show you how cost-effective ABC seamless really is.
This is CNN.
Shedding light on one of history's darkest chapters. Relatives of Holocaust victims look for signs of their loved ones in the pages of the so-called Nazi death book.
Mike Tyson's most stunning defeat. The former heavyweight champ leaves the courtroom to face a bleak future.
And art that's far from priceless. How the recession is changing the portrait of the art world. And welcome back to Early Prime. I'm Lou Waters.
I'm Sharyl Attkisson. Also ahead, a plan to open up veterans' hospitals to non-vets runs into opposition.
And what to believe about the health controversy brewing over your morning cup of coffee.
First, our top stories. A National Weather Service spokesman says it could be the worst downpour to hit California in a century. Rain continued to soak the Los Angeles area today. Residents are dreading another deluge. The subsiding waters from yesterday's flooding left behind a watery graveyard of cars and damaged homes. The sudden storm dumped almost 8 inches of rain on some parts of Los Angeles. In some areas, water stood 25 feet deep. Emergency crews and helicopters and inflatable power boats rescued at least 4 dozen people trapped by the flood waters. The raging waters forced many to scramble to safety on the tops of their cars.
At my house, a tidal wave, and the Red Cross was here, National Guard, everybody was here trying to help, trying to save this place, trying to save, you know, what was left, but it was just, you know, the power of nature is just too strong.
We haven't had a flood like this since 1980. Wasn't quite as bad, as about a foot lower than it was last time.
Even with all that rain, city officials say it barely quenches the area's 6 years of drought.
Boxer Mike Tyson has left the city where he met what may be his greatest defeat. The former world heavyweight champion, now a convicted rapist, caught a flight out of Indianapolis this afternoon for Cleveland. He's to arrive in Cleveland in just a few minutes. This morning, Tyson went to a sentencing interview in Indianapolis, soft-spoken and cooperative. That's how the chief probation officer described him. Tyson faces sentencing March 6th for his conviction last night of raping a Miss Black America pageant contestant. In Alexandria, Virginia, the trial continues in the bizarre case of the doctor accused of using his own sperm in his infertility patients. Dr. Cecil Jacobson has argued he had his patient's permission. Today, former patients testified against him. Jacobson faces 52 counts of fraud and perjury.
Under the magnifying glass today on Early Prime, testimony of 2 of Jacobson's former patients. Deborah Gregory testified that 3 times Jacobson told her she was pregnant when she wasn't. She says in several sonogram exams he even pointed out a supposed fetus, that he indicated this was the baby's arm and that Junior was sucking his thumb. Mrs. Gregory testified she was shocked and devastated each time the doctor told her the baby had died or was reabsorbed into her body. Prosecutors say Jacobson gave her hormones that made her bloated and created a false positive on pregnancy tests. Mrs. Gregory is still childless. Christine Maimone testified Jacobson told her, "My husband needed to make sure that I had an orgasm because that would help in my conceiving. Also that she should be artificially inseminated so that we could get the good stuff," apparently referring to more potent sperm.
Prosecutors say as many as 75 times that sperm was his own. Jacobson's license has been revoked. He conducts privately funded genetics research in Provo, Utah.
General Motors is trying to encourage employees of its parts suppliers to buy GM cars and trucks. Some suppliers already offer to help workers pay for a car made in North America. For example, Monsanto Chemical will provide $1,000 toward the purchase. Now GM offers to match any such incentive for the next 90 days. The deal applies to any GM car or truck, including those not built in the USA. And from Flint, Michigan comes a story of two GM employees who thought they were calling a dealer about a defective Buick. Instead, they found out they had the buyer on the phone, and they ended up apologizing personally for the defect. John Jacobs bought a 1992 LeSabre with the left front brake installed wrong, and that caused the brake fluid to drain out. When a GM foreman learned he had the buyer on the phone, he brought over the man who installed the brakes. Both men assured Jacobs the mistake will not happen again.
Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan stands by his assertion that interest rates are low enough already to spark a recovery. Greenspan told executives of small banks today that recovery will come, in his words, hopefully in the reasonably near future. But Greenspan did promise to keep watching the economy closely to see if still lower rates are needed.
The U.S. Supreme Court today said the Bush administration can continue the forced return of Haitian refugees to their homeland, but the court gave the administration until Friday to respond to charges filed by human rights lawyers that it knew that some refugees already returned to Haiti have been persecuted. Lawyers for the refugees want to stop all repatriations. The administration says the Haitians are seeking better lives, not fleeing persecution, and don't deserve political asylum. Meantime, the Pentagon says the Navy is investigating allegations that a U.S. serviceman sexually assaulted a Haitian woman at the Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba.
Bush administration officials are saying they do not know if two Libyans indicted for the terrorist bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 are dead or alive. The Washington Post quotes a former senior CIA official as saying the two Libyans have disappeared and may have been executed. Both the United States and Britain have demanded that Libya extradite the two men to face prosecution for the 1988 bombing, which killed 270 people. A Libyan judge says the two men are safe and were last seen 2 days ago.
The American Red Cross has begun a new effort to help families of Holocaust victims learn the fate of their loved ones. Archivists now are cataloging thousands of names by poring over Nazi death camp records, including death books and lists of victims of medical experiments. CNN's Jamie McIntyre has more on all of this.
For many Holocaust survivors, the past 50 years have been haunted by uncertainty. Memories of fathers, mothers, siblings, loved ones whose fate was never learned.
I left Vienna in 1939 and left my parents behind. In all those years, I wondered what had happened.
At a U.S. Archives facility in suburban Maryland, Red Cross volunteers are finding out, pouring through thousands of war documents declassified for 20 years, but whose significance was only recently recognized.
These records will now become even more accessible, both within the United States and around the globe.
The records, which fill some 45,000 boxes, include rare Nazi death books listing the names of the condemned. When paper became scarce, records were kept on the back of cigarette packages, crosses indicating death. At a ceremony in Washington, American Red Cross President Elizabeth Dole turned over microfilm copies of the first batch of records to a representative of the International Red Cross Agency that coordinates tracing worldwide.
They are all that we have to fight with. They are our weapons to defend precious memories, and most important, they are our strongest weapons against forgetting.
At the Red Cross Holocaust and War Victims Tracing Center in Baltimore, Maryland, workers are already processing more than 6,000 requests forwarded from local chapters and bracing for more. Each of these colored map pins is a question mark, marking the last known location of someone's loved one who was a victim of Nazi persecution. Red Cross officials hope the newly discovered records will not only allow them to remove some of these pins as the questions are answered, but to add new pins as other families are given new hope their questions can be answered too.
People who survived that era are getting older now. There isn't a whole lot of time left, and we feel that it's very important to make people aware of the fact that we do provide the tracing service so that they'll be encouraged to come forward.
Margaret Lipton learned her parents died in a death camp.
They were together until to the end. It was very sad news, but I was at peace with myself.
Jamie McIntyre, CNN, Washington.
Still ahead on Early Prime, is that morning cup of coffee hazardous to your health? We'll have details of a new eye-opening study.
The recession in the art world, how the economy is changing the face of art.
And a revealing look at the latest in fashion statements, men's underwear.
Gad.
Across the world, phones are ringing. Who's calling?
Hello, Mom. It's Jonathan. I'm getting married.
People who are saving money with the AT&T Reach Out World plan. They're calling friends.